Hello, my name's Roger BLOOR and welcome to the print room of Clayhanger Press and to the launch of Claire Hughes' debut pamphlet, Oblivion. Claire's pamphlet was selected by the competition judges for the Clayhanger Press Pamphlet Competition 2021 and was a worthy winner. I've asked the judge of the competition, Diana Cant, just to say a few words, both about Claire's pamphlet, but also about all the excellent entries we had for the competition. Diana is a consultant child and adolescent psychologist, psychotherapist, has worked for many years with distressed and depressed young people. She has an MA in poetry writing from Newcastle University through the Poetry School. She's a member of the Mid-Kent Stanza Group and the Canada Water Poetry Group. Her work's been published in a number of magazines, including Finnish Creatures, The Alchemy Spoon, Brittle Star, Ink, Sweat and Tears, and Nine Muses, and her poetry's also been published in a number of anthologies. She was longlisted in the Ginkgo Prize 2019 and commended in the Hippocrates Prize, the Vere and Plough Prizes in 2021, and her debut pamphlet, Student Bodies 1968, was published by Clayhanger Press in 2020. Her most recent publication, pamphlet At Risk, was published by Dempsey and Windle earlier this year and is still available from Dempsey and Windle or direct from Diana herself. So I'll hand over now to my friend and poetry colleague Diana Cant, just say a few words about the competition entries. Diana Cant.
Hello, I'm Diana Cant, and I was very honoured to be asked to judge the Clayhanger Press Pamphlet Competition 2021. First of all, I'd like to commend all the poets who entered. There was a really rich range of subject and form and clearly much dedication and commitment to poetic craft. It takes a great deal of effort to put a pamphlet together, and I was impressed by the sheer hard work that clearly went into all the submissions. But my instructions were to pick a winner, and this I've done. And the winning pamphlet, Oblivion by Claire Hughes, is a worthy one. It's a powerful collection of poems around the theme of parenthood, motherhood to be precise. It charts the complex and often ambivalent feelings that parenting a young child can bring. The piles of washing, the welcome mindlessness of daytime TV, together with the pull and push of maternal love. There's an emotional honesty to these poems that's often captured by unusual, arresting images. A baby's head, for example, being described as a milk blot head. And these are made more resonant by the details of the everyday. For example, dried rivers of toothpaste on the underbelly of the sink. It's the attention to these details that avoids over-sentimentality and gives this pamphlet its arresting immediacy. Congratulations, Claire.
So now it's time to hear from the poet herself, Claire Hughes. She's going to do two readings, a reading from Oblivion, and then she has three guest poets who are going to read, and then Claire will do another shorter reading towards the end of the evening. Claire's a Birmingham-born writer living in Staffordshire. She completed her MA in creative writing at Lancaster University, and her poetry has been published in magazines such as One Hand Clapping, 192 and the Babel Tower Notice Board. She's also had her poems featured in anthologies by Dreamwell Publishing and the Mum Poet Press Anthology. Claire's now working on a novel and has been long listed for the Prima Donna Prize 2021. Obviously, Oblivion is a debut pamphlet, which is very exciting. So here she is, Claire Hughes.
Hello, and welcome to the launch of my new pamphlet, Oblivion. I'm going to be reading some of the poems from the pamphlet today. And the first one is called This Isn't a Proposal But, which I wrote for my husband. I wore a hoodie, baggy shorts and flip-flops to walk along our pebble-dash lane. Our baby slept upon my chest, then you stopped, mid-sentence, and asked if you could speak plain. I do not ask for your hand because I know it is not mine to own. Yet should we think about that paper bond? What if the crow calls for me and leaves you with nothing to drink? Our limbs are tied with love-laced steel. We saw no need to seal it with paper or words, but the flesh on my chest that squawks and squeals leads me down a path from which I was once deterred. It will not change us much, I must confess, but to my beating heart, I of course say yes. And the next poem I'd like to read is a poem called I Love You ITV4, which featured in the Mum Poem Press anthology Songs of Love and Strength. And it was me thinking about those times when my son was a newborn and feeding him mid-afternoon when it was actually a little bit quiet. 3 o'clock, an idle Tuesday. He rests his milk-blot head on my chest, swims to nod to the tune of Where the Heart Is. A blessed hour where up and down he rides the waves of breath, floats on his milk-moon belly. I swim too on a deflated balloon down streams of sweet tea, because today no one will see the deck has not been scrubbed. The hill-high pile of washing hasn't been scaled. The treasure chest of pre-motherhood muscle has not been found, only a bounty of Milky Ways. Just a phase, a glorious reflux-ridden phase where sleep is induced at 3 o'clock on an idle Tuesday to the tune of Where the Heart Is. And this next poem I wrote when I was feeling quite overwhelmed as a mother, when it feels like there are lots of jobs to do. And it's called Groundhog Day. The blackbird lands on the windowsill, coal dark feathers decked in fragments of hail and apple blossom. There is a family to feed. He waits patiently, twittering echoes of his dawn-time performance. A joyful reveille that melts into mournful sorrow. It is impossible to carry the hope of dawn on a mere tune, especially when you are surrounded by bleak black clouds and your feathers are tattered. So much is expected. Yet all that matters is to get this first fill of food and to prepare the nest for rest. When the chores are done, I scatter currants for him. Watch him tackle 1, 2, 3 starlings. Triumphant, he fills his amber flash beak, retreats and starts again. And this next poem again is about feeling overwhelmed as a mum. And it's about hiding sometimes. It's called I Just Need a Minute. There are 21 tiles on the bathroom floor, 28 in the shower, and a 3-foot crack beneath the frosted window. Dried rivers of toothpaste on the underbelly of the sink, and paddle pools of water can wait. I haven't battled across a minefield of Lego or ducked from the crossfire of a pint-sized night in order to clean. I seek sanctuary, solitude, a place to rinse off forbidden thoughts, silent screams and mascara stains that will give me away. I have 60 seconds before the door surrenders to cannons that are propelled by hunger and general need. Mummy, mummy, mum, mum, can I have just a minute, please? Now the next poem is called Cardboard Castles, and I wrote this during the pandemic when we were all in lockdown and I was trying to keep my little boy entertained, and we ended up using scraps of cardboard for everything and doing lots of crafts, and one of those was a cardboard castle. We build a castle from cardboard and adorn it with cotton wool clouds, plastic jewels and a tissue paper rainbow. The drawbridge refuses to lower and it sinks on one side, but it's yours, your kingdom. Built with our fair hands, it protects knights of the realm, houses heroes and monsters, and travels through space and time. But one day the jewels will fall, the rainbow will fade, and I will see your head emerge above the turrets and witness the world they want you to see. And the final poem I'd like to read is a poem called Magpie, and I wrote this when I was picturing my son in the future, 13 years down the line when he's 18 and maybe leaving home. I am the magpie of broken things. I will not be contented with golden rings or silver spoons. I refuse to be blinded by the sunlit shine of diamonds, and I will never adore pearls that burn with silver. So I throw them out, watch them fall and crack like eggs. Into twigs and leaves I weave the dying dandelion that lived in the egg cup. Add our stone collection, cardboard castles, seashore shells, fridge magnets, and the novelty socks you got me for every single birthday. I wrap each strand around the cracked spine of Peter Pan. Yes, I rescued him. Lifted him from the rubbish heap where he lay after failing to lull you to sleep. Where you abandoned the quest to remain a boy forever. I stitch every dull treasure with the loose thread of memory and tie them together with one of my own clipped feathers. Weighed down by fingerprints, my construction leaves me with nothing more than an empty nest. Thank you.
So now we have one of Claire's invited guest readers to read for us, and I'm pleased to introduce Susie Campbell. Susie's poetry has appeared in many UK and international magazines, anthologies and visual poetry exhibitions. Her poetry books include The Bitters from Dancing Girl Press, The Frock Inquiry from Annex, I Return to You, Samson Lowe 2019, and most recently Enclosures from the Osmosis Press 2021. She's currently studying for a practice-based poetry PhD at Oxford Brookes University, and I'm really pleased to welcome Sue Campbell to read.
It's an honour to be part of this celebration of Claire's pamphlet. Claire has said that themes of mental health and motherhood are important to her work, so I've tried to choose poems that respond to those themes. The first poem I'm going to read is from Tenter, and it's an extract from Wound, a poem about my grandfather's World War II experience and his PTSD, although they called it then psychoneurosis. It blew him up an epiphany to meet a god in the air, not the sleepy old god, but a lord full of blast wind and organ rupture, and the wife's head slammed against the door for going to the pictures on a Saturday morning. Petrum, patrum, paradisi, tempore. Taken into the air, he saw others, saints and prophets lifted by the hair, a boy snatched up by the crown, to hear archer angels singing high above the field of Agincourt. Psychoneurosis, unknown words on a paper, invalided him out. His sentence a shock of unexpected clemency, army his whole life. Peri, Meri, Dixie, Domine. Cracked up, they said, but it's the heart. A feathery dove-like thing escaped its margins, and from up here his bird's eye, a labyrinth of cratered lanes and blasted hedges. To digest his surfeit, death tosses back his trou normand, tasting at first of apples, the sweet rouge d'oreille, the tart Rimbaud. Peri, Meri, Dixie, Domine. In fact, both my grandparents were inpatients of the local mental hospital, and my grandmother subsequently took her own life by drowning, which is another recurring theme in my work. This has had an impact on my own mental health, and a poem which reflects on this and on some of my grandparents' experience is Settling with My Madness, which first appeared in Shearsman magazine. Naked, except for her turquoise skin, from each pierced nipple swings a silver charm, a camel with a ruby eye, a Babel tower an inch high. She begins the dance. Cameras zoom in as she struts with pointed toes, somersaults with squirrel grace, and lands with a flick of her wrists. Handwritten labels peel from clear glass, medicine bottles crammed full of bitter sherbets in the old sweet factory, children's marbles for stoppers, striped aggies, blind white milkies, a brutal blood alley. I hide her in the attic. Down in the street, straw effigies grin and swagger, whistling through sewn lips. Help us, we need purges, syrup of figs and licorice twists. They drag the river again. A kayaker sucked from his canoe grows gigantic, as the drowned always do, and fills the river with his trailing arms and slackened lips. Even the rubber-suited divers know the water gives back its bodies only when it's done, deposits them hollow and laced together with weed. They visit me, the drowned, leave footprints on my doorstep, a smear of green slime on my china, this paper, draped with nettles and long purples, lying wet on the floor. And I'll finish with a short poem about motherhood, not about being a mother, but about the loss of my own mother and its relationship with my writing. This poem also appeared first in Shearsman. Udder. What is ancestral in me knows as little as that skipping calf is oiled and clipped to bleed open the earth, or is left wandering. I was ready, but not for these, heads lowered and moving across my carpet at night, nostrils blowing with effort. Driven north across Europe, black as iron gall, great vessels heavy with freight, stowaway calves hidden by their mother's bulk. As a meteor leaves a glittering trail of horned gods, teats, and cloven feet. When you saw them on the hill, I blamed your failing sight, floaters, residue close to the eye, or the sun pooling in dips to distend the sides of shadow. But you insisted they're back. And so now they come, always walking from left to right, a swollen matriarchy rolling hoof to implacable hoof, appearing and disappearing into the blank margin until it leaks its pale milk. Thank you.
Claire's next invited reader is the Staffordshire Poet Laureate 2019 to 2022, Mel WARDLE-WOODEND. Mel's published work includes dyslexia-friendly poetry and storybooks, a poetry collection, Natural Colours, published in 2017, that explores the concept of synesthesia, and also Just a Thought, published in 2019, that explores themes of mental health. Mel's director of the Staffordshire-based dyslexia-friendly publishing company, Dreamwell Writing Limited, and Mel's most recent collection, Lines from Lockdown, was published in February this year, and has Mel's poetry and her digital artwork. And her short story in paperback, Tabitha, was published July 2021. Mel has an MA in creative writing with a merit, and is one half of Word Stafford, enjoys facilitating poetry workshops and participating in slams, open mics and festivals. Her bio says that she lives in Stafford with a husband, her cat and a guinea pig, who all feature often in her work. Mel WARDLE-WOODEND.
Hello, my name's Mel WARDLE-WOODEND. I'm the Poet Laureate of Staffordshire, and I'd just like to say a huge congratulations to Claire Hughes on the publication of her first poetry collection, Oblivion, with Clayhanger Press. I've known Claire for about a year now, when she started coming to my poetry workshops on Zoom, and myself and everyone else at the workshops were just blown away by Claire's writing. It's so heartfelt and detailed, and she's a brilliant poet, so I know that her collection is just going to be fabulous, and I can't wait to read it. I'd like to also say thank you very much, Claire, for asking me to read at your launch. It's really a big honour. And I've got a couple of poems that I want to share, because I think the first one, it's about writing about your own personal issues, and I think if people do that as poets, we can reach out and create solidarity to other people, and I think that that's something that you do with your writing. So this first poem I'm going to share is OCD. Don't worry, be happy. It's so easy to say, but not easy to do when facing an eternal, ongoing war raging inside your mind against OCD. We all have our quirks, our routines, our orders, getting up, getting ready, morning routines and leaving for work, but OCD creates an ongoing cycle of angst. I must check the door 4 times, I must check the door 4 times, I must check the door 4 times, I must check the door 4 times. What if I've left the hair straighteners on? What if they cause a fire? What if the flat burns down, the cat dies, and I cause all this to happen? What if? So in this endless tortured cycle I must check and check and check again until it feels just right. My anxiety builds and other compulsions creep in and I get distracted, anxiously turning on and off the light. Then finally I'm ready to leave. I step out the door with a final glance back. I lock the door and I definitely did turn the key, but just to be sure I check the handle again and again because there must be no uncertainty. Then heart racing, palms sweating, a trickle of sweat on my neck, I hurriedly walk away. My breathing calms, cools and steadies. I've got past this stumbling block. But now I pick up the pace. I'm late, having to race to work. My boss simply won't understand. What can I say? What excuse can I conjure up today? Anything but the fear of truth, for judgment. Fear of laughter, of rejection, of being shunned by the normal people, the cool people, the people that don't admit to having any worries that haunt them night and day. But in this denial to others, I deny myself too. I trap myself into lies, into a forced fake smile, forced to fit into pretending, and that's just not me. So, here is the truth. I have OCD, and it used to control me when I hid, alone and afraid of being me. But why shouldn't I be me? You see, now I can admit it's part of me. I'm free. It's no longer controlling me. It's a deflated balloon, falteringly fluttering around the room and losing power, then falling down, defeated, to the ground. It is lifeless, whereas I am living free. And yes, I still have OCD, and yes, it's a daily battle of questioning wars inside my head, but now I don't care what other people think. I'm not afraid to be me instead. Judgmental idiots can walk away, and those who stay are the ones who matter, who care, who will always be there, and who care about me. And in allowing myself not to care and to shrug off the way past people have judged, I'm not judging myself. I'm just being me, so I am free. So that's the first poem I wanted to share, which is obviously quite a personal poem. But I think this next poem, it's all about the way that books can take us on a journey of escapism, take us into another world really, inside our imaginations, and make us think. And I think that's what poetry does, and I think it's really relevant for Claire's book launch. So this is Empathy. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. An acceptance shown of another's view, even if reasons are not really understood or known, empathy grows. Eyes half closed, I step into a book where characters make me think twice, to open my eyes and really look, to consider a situation and question wrong or right. Words impact and capture me, enrapture me, opening my eyes, opening my mind to empathy. I ponder and consider a different perspective for the very first time. Books cast a spell to capture you and capture me. They capture all who open them up to read magic ink-filled pages. Adjectives and verbs, words, a spell passed through the ages, and through the narrative of another, I hear my own voice and find a comrade I have never met, yet their story is mine. Experiences are shared. I'm no longer alone. I'm not the only one struggling in this tumultuous world, and I barely dare to breathe as I read. The words flow, my mind's engaged, and something transfers into my soul from out of the page. The book takes its warm, inky fingers and firmly holds my hand. My mind and my heart expand. And together the book and I navigate its final chapter. Then with a sigh I stroke its spine and place my friend upon its shelf. I turn away with a stronger certainty. I've seen into a mirror of the self. My outlook's changed, and I found an unanticipated understanding in an unexpected place. I've been in someone else's shoes and they have been in mine. Finally, I know I'm not alone. I've seen into someone else's soul, heard someone else's story, and now I understand. Empathy flows. Empathy. So thanks again, Claire, for inviting me to read, and huge congratulations on the publication of Oblivion. Thank you.
Claire's final guest reader is Dr. Sarah Corbett. Sarah's published 5 collections of poetry. Her most recent, Perfect Mirror from Pavilion Poetry, 2018, and the verse novel And She Was, also from Pavilion in 2015, which were both highly commended in the Forward Poetry Prize. Her first collection, The Red Wardrobe, published by Seren in 1998, won an Eric Gregory Award and was shortlisted for the T.S. Eliot Prize and Forward Prize for the Best First Collection. She's currently a senior lecturer in creative writing at Lancaster University and lives in Hebden Bridge. Sarah Corbett.
Counting the pennies. How quickly the pennies tarnish, rub together in the penny barrel like rain. Not the silken rush over the plunged-in hand, but the grit feel of necessity, the stink of it as it gilds the skin. Dad's pennies on the shelf above the bed, pilfered for sweets. The guts sing of guilt, jangle, jangle. His hand a fat, knuckled animal jumping in his trouser pocket. Now, though, enough to make a scratch meal or the bus to town. This broken-eyed penny pot is sour as an unbleached bin. Your fingers as you count and bag, rusty with tannin, familiar as that tang in the mouth when you have run hard and far and for too long, or in the stream when you reach between the rocks where the water runs brown with bracken. Pennies, pennies for the eyes of the dead one. Don't look. He comes in the night with his smell of cigarettes, ravellings of smoke, the path unrolling a sheet in the sun where you might make passage. Pennies for the dead stacked like chimneys in a toy mill town, rained on black blocks. Here the portcullis, here the head. Praise song. I write in praise of the junior doctor who, at 4 a.m. or some time thereabouts, pale, sweating, swaying foot to foot at the tail end of a double shift, put his fingers into my uterus and swept the last blood-thickened scraps into a metal dish. What was left of the placenta that hours previously held the faulty but still beating heart of the 14-week fetus that was never meant to make it. He did this because I asked him to, begged, pleaded with him to be spared the mask, the plummet, the counting back into the abyss, anaesthetic, the D&C procedure that recalled that other time, that other loss, the one I had chosen. He did this because he could, because in the lemon-walled room with the Peter Rabbit curtains at 4 a.m, there was just me and him and the small break the baby made in the fabric of things as it slipped away. There he was, younger than me, too young maybe to have suffered much personal loss, pale, sweating, swaying foot to foot, dark blonde hair, baby face, hands deft, making this pact I now break. Somehow, by chance or fate, assigned to me that night, when he should have been in bed dreaming, his school jumper rolled for goalposts, tendons primed, arms outstretched, fingers splayed for the ball as it was kicked his way. Nest. Dropped on the path from above, this minor masterpiece in feather, horsehair, moss and grass the size of my fist, In its just abandoned perfection, something of the kitchens of the disappeared or dispossessed. Breakfast, a mossy fuzz, coffee trembling on the table. Or the kitchen where we find ourselves in this nest of hills, and where I bring this unit of beauty, this interior knot, just as the news on the radio drops us onto the path of history, as if we've woken into a field at dawn, naked, wet, the steam still rising.
I'd just like to say thank you to the poets you've heard read during this launch, Dr. Sarah Corbett, Susie Campbell and Mel WARDLE-WOODEnd. Each of these women have inspired me and encouraged me to write poetry, and without them I don't think this pamphlet would exist. They have been such an influence in my writing and I'm really thankful to each of them. I'd also like to thank Clayhanger Press for publishing Oblivion, and to Diana Cant, who announced it as the winner of the pamphlet competition. I was so excited when I realised that I'd won and that I would have a book of my own. It's been a dream of mine to have a book with my name on it, and I do. So I'm really excited. I'd also like to thank all my family and friends who put up with me writing and the frustrations that come with that. But especially I'd like to thank my husband PJ and my son Charlie. They are in every page of this pamphlet. They have inspired every poem, and without them I just wouldn't have the courage to produce my work. So thank you. And the final poem I'd like to read to you tonight is a poem that I wrote during a workshop with the Soldiers Arts Academy. We were asked to write a poem about love, and my response was a poem called First Sight. Pushed by the white knuckle of the moon we fell. We tumbled and rolled, our arms and legs making a lustrous beast. Past stars and galaxies we travelled through tragic darkness. Welded in one monstrous form we never considered letting go, never wanted to turn back or reach for the shallowness of light because we knew the secret of the hooded moon's oblivion. Thank you, and thank you all for watching this launch.
So that's the end of the launch, and what an enjoyable set of readings that was. The copies of Claire's pamphlet are available from Clayhanger Press website. The web links on the page at the moment, and we will of course be running a pamphlet competition through Clayhanger Press for 2022, so watch out for the announcements of that. So once again, just to say thank you to Diana, to Claire and her 3 readers, and to you for supporting Claire tonight. Good night.